Good morning, guys. Welcome to the Tech Forum. If you're new here, my name is Matt Shoemaker. On this channel, we discuss automotive-related subjects primarily revolving around the EV community and technology. Many of the stories that I share on this channel and technical information is related to this car, a 2018 Tesla Model 3. I bought this car new about 5 months back, I think, at this point. And I've got 17,300 miles on it. It's a great car, and I really enjoy sharing the ownership experience with you guys. Anyway, today we're going to discuss police interaction, tickets, or times that police officers have let us off from those tickets. And this video comes on the heels of my previous video where I discuss being pulled over in this car, and the officer was really nice and let me off. So let's get to it. All right, guys, good morning. So as I said in the intro, today's video is just about a couple of interesting situations that I had many years ago. So the first one, this was, goodness, I'd say 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, 31, 32 years ago. I have a friend from out of state that a couple of years older than I think he was 18 at the time, and a very good friend of mine that was big into mid-60s Chevys and Chevelles, and primarily Chevelles, but mid-60s Chevys. And he'd find beat-up cars and strip them down to the bare body and repaint the entire unibody, change color, and reassemble the car. And I mean, it was amazing. The guy could strip a car down to nothing pretty much over a weekend, paint it over the next couple days, and reassemble it a couple days later. And just it was really a joy working with him. Anyway, as teenagers, we kind of messed around a bit, and I remember at one point he had just rebuilt a car that he had, and he had family out of state on the West Coast, so was on his way back to move back by his family out that way. And we're in northern Illinois, by the way. Anyway, so he had just rebuilt the car the day before, so he called and asked if I wanted to go and test drive the car with him. So I said sure, and we got up early, and we were driving through one of the local towns, and he was sort of on his way out of state. He had his luggage in the car. He was just basically taking me for one last ride before he moved, and so he picked me up, and we were driving probably, I bet he was going 25 over. I was in the passenger seat. He was driving, and probably, like I said, going about 25 over, and we got pulled over. So here in northern Illinois, you could post, and they did this differently back then. I think it's changed now. I don't know. I haven't had an actual speeding ticket in years, but back then you could either post your license as bond or post a dollar amount as bond. Bond was just surety that you would show up to court to contest or to plead guilty on your traffic violation. So we were pulled over. The officer comes to the window, and he said, sir, you were going whatever it was. Again, I think it was 25 over. And he said, would you like to post your license, or would you like to post, I think it was $50 or $70 or something in cash as bond? And so he leaned over and he says, do you have any money on you? And I said, well, how much do you need? And he looked at me, he says, I don't know, I'm maybe 20 bucks short. So I dug through my wallet and had $20. So I handed him $20, and he made up the rest of it. Anyway, handed the officer the amount needed for bond. And so, the officer talked to us, and we left. And we're driving, we're 2 or 3 minutes up the road or something, and his eyes got really big, and he looked over at me, and he said, did that just happen? And then I realized the officer took the money that was for bond to assure that we were going to show up for court, never did give my friend a ticket, he just tipped his hat after we paid him bond. He tipped his hat and said, you boys slow it down and have a nice day. Walked back to his car, and we left. And I instantly kind of freaked out inside. I was a teenager, and oh my gosh, did that just happen? He never gave you a ticket. He just pocketed the money. We laughed about that, and I mean, thank God he doesn't live in this area, because he didn't have to worry about that officer pulling him over again. He was just, he had family here and family. Anyway, he was here for a time over the summer, I believe, and then he was moving back with his family on the West Coast there. But that was, wow. That opened my eyes to, you know, human beings can do some odd things and color outside the lines. And, you know, up to that point, I didn't realize that type of thing actually occurred. So that was interesting story number one. Again, now I was just a passenger. I wasn't driving in the car. The next one, I was driving. And this next one occurred about 26 years ago. And I've never, up until recently, never had any fast cars. But I had a lot of fast motorcycles. And 27 years ago now, I believe it was, oh goodness, it was probably longer ago than that. 28, 29 years ago, I bought my first sport bike. And so I bought the bike, and again, living in Northern Illinois, I have relatives down in Kentucky, and I wanted to ride the motorcycle down there to visit them. So I had a tank bag, and I had saddlebags and all the rest, loaded up all my luggage, and it's typically a roughly 8-hour drive from our house to theirs. So I left, and I'm going down through Chicago, and those that know the area, I'm up on the Skyway, and you know, it was a beautiful ride. Well, I'm going south down through Indiana, and a long route down Indiana, and I could see just, it was flat as a pancake. I could see the road I was on kind of disappear in front of me, seemingly forever. And just then, this black car blows by me. And I look down, I'm going 80, and he just blew by me. Well, I was young. I downshifted, laid on my tank bag behind the windshield, and just floored it, and got up behind him and looked, and we were going 135 miles an hour. So I thought, this is, wow, I'd gone that fast on a motorcycle before, never in a car. And I thought, this is kind of crazy, you know. The bike would go faster than that, but I'm like, this is, you know, I've never seen a car go that fast. So, you know, I kind of glanced around and couldn't see anything. So I thought, I'm just going to draft off the back of this guy for a while. So we ended up going for some time. And anyway, eventually we got pulled over, and for going 135 miles an hour. Now, sidebar, those of you that were shocked about that I got a warning for going 17 over, this is going to blow you away. And if you don't believe me because I don't have video evidence of it, I guess that's up to you. But we got pulled over. The officer walked up to both of us, and he was really ticked off. And I had the bike shut off and my helmet off at the time. The guy in the car, the car was still running, so he goes over to the guy in the car, and he says, "Shut off the engine!" I mean, he was just about yelling. And he says, "Both of you in my squad." So we got in the squad car. We're sitting in the back seat. The guy driving the car, there was still a window sticker in the side of the car. And he's crying. I was scared out of my mind also, but I hadn't hit the point of tears at this stage. He was crying, and young guy, newly married, and he says, "My wife is going to kill me. She's absolutely going to kill me." And he's just going crazy. So, and the officer, well, anyway, that's part of the story. You don't really need to hear little details, but it was obvious he had us dead to rights, and very, very obvious. And he had his radar on. I know I had a radar detector on my bike at the time. Anyway, so the officer looks at us, and he said, "Look," he said, "I couldn't get a lock on you guys, But he said, I had to floor it, and it took me a long time to catch up to you guys. He said, so you were hell-bent way over 100. So he said, here's what I'm going to do. He said he was writing up both tickets. So he writes up the tickets, and he said, I'm writing up these tickets for 10 miles over the limit, because he said here in Indiana, 10 over the limit, at least way back then, 10 over the limit isn't even a moving violation. It's like a parking ticket. He said there's no points against your license, there's nothing, you just pay the fine. So he wrote up the tickets. Now here in Illinois, what you would do when when an officer gives you a ticket, if you're pleading guilty, you can usually pay the ticket by mail. So what you would do is on the back of the ticket, you would check that you're pleading guilty to that violation, and then you would mail the ticket in. And only the ticket holder, the person who received the ticket, can check guilty. Well, the officer gives us the tickets, and he flipped both of them over on his own, and he said, I am checking guilty on the back of both of your tickets. And he was really stern, and he said, you guys contest this in court, and I will make sure you lose these vehicles and you lose your licenses. I mean, he was adamant about it. He said it's a $35 fine. Pay the fine. There's no points against your license. It's not a moving violation. He said, but he said you got to pay something on this. He said, I don't want to arrest you guys, which is what would happen here. You're both young. Learn by this mistake. And so he handed us guilty checked tickets, which, like I said, weren't even moving violations. They were like getting a parking ticket. And we went on our way. And kind of interesting, because we were apparently going fast for a really long time, because I knew we were at the time, but I didn't realize for how long, because I showed up down in Kentucky at my family's place in 5 hours and 40 minutes. And even though we were stopped for 15 or 20 minutes on the road, so we were going probably most of the way through Indiana at nearly full throttle, 135. So kind of interesting, some of the things that, those are extreme situations, but those type of things do occur. In my situation, I've been driving many, many miles for work and just for fun. Ever since I got my license, I've probably averaged 40,000 miles a year ever since I started driving. When I was in my teens, I delivered pizzas, and got pulled over once in the 3 years I delivered pizzas, amazingly enough, only once. But I delivered pizzas, and I've had various jobs that required a lot of driving. So I've had a lot of situations, and I have also gotten tickets for things I didn't deserve. My wife and I moved down to Phoenix, this was 25 years ago, and had a motorcycle. So we got down there, and I think it was within about a week of living there, we got pulled over, and the officer said, you changed lanes without using your signal. We were on 4 lanes. Maybe he was right. I don't know. We changed lanes. He pulled us over. He said, you weren't speeding, but you did neglect to use your signal while changing lanes. He said, I noticed your Illinois license plate. He said, are you just passing through, or are you visiting? I said, we just moved here. He said, when in the state of Arizona, you must have an Arizona plate. And he said, have you changed your driver's license yet? So I said, no. So he wrote me a ticket for having an out-of-state plate and an out-of-state license. And I said, isn't there any kind of grace period? I mean, you can't just move to a state and within 13 seconds of setting foot off the plane before you get to your rental car or whatever, you have to have a new license. And he said, in the state of Illinois, or in the state of Arizona, you must, and he just kept repeating this, you must have an Arizona driver's license and Arizona registration on your vehicle. So for that ticket, I went to I went to driving school to get, so that the ticket wasn't against my record. And in driving school, the man teaching the class, who was great, he says, how many people here are from out of state? And almost every hand went up in the courtroom. And he said, right, he said, just so you know, it's an unwritten law in Arizona that if you are in Arizona without an Arizona license and plate on your vehicle, you will get pulled over and you will be issued a ticket. He said, it's technically not the law on the books, but it's the way things work here. And I thought that was very unjust. But anyway, so fascinating stories over the years. You know, I've driven hundreds of thousands of miles, and eventually these things happen. So anyway, just funny stories for you guys today. If you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and give me a like if you would. And, you know, share some interesting stories down in the comments section. I'm curious to know, you know, any of these things have happened to you guys when you were younger, or even currently. You know, at this stage in my life, I'm not a speed demon. I will admit it's nice having a car that accelerates hard, but boy, in my past, I had dirt bikes and street bikes, and every now and then the bug would get the better of me, and I'd be driving a little bit too fast. And so anyway, just some fun stories for you guys today. Have a good day.